Okay, so our topic for today is about Chapter 3. And Chapter 3 is titled Using Network Communication Protocols. Now, the chapter may differ from your module, but I assure you that this PowerPoint is solely based on our module and then the book where we greatly reference our module from. So you can use this for your reviewer for our upcoming quizzes and finals examination. Now, for this particular finals, we're going to only tackle Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. And also, I would like to remind everyone to be mindful of your materials and also the deadline of our project. So, have your materials ready and then watch some tutorials on how to configure a straight through and crossover. So, you'll be doing 2 again. And then you're going to upload that on a YouTube channel or through Google Drive and then post the link or send the link through Schoology. The other guidelines and format, I will just send it to you on our respective GCs so that you'll be updated. Okay, so let's officially start our lesson. So this PowerPoint presentation is mostly based on Hands-on Networking Fundamentals 2nd edition by Michael Palmer. I just have added some few inputs and other references from other sources. Now, like what we usually do, let us begin with the objectives. Now, for the objectives, objective number 1 is to explain network protocols including the TCP, UDP, and IP, discuss how IP addressing works, objective number 2, and number 3 is to understand the difference between IP version 4 and IP version 6. Yes po, we have 2 types of IP address, IP version 4 and IP version 6. And then, objective number 4, explain the use of application protocols in the TCP/IP suite. Now, the TCP/IP, though it is a combination of two protocols, there are other protocols inside the TCP/IP suite. Next objective would be objective number 5. Explain how VoIP or Voice over Internet Protocol works. Objective number 6. Compare the TCP/IP to the OSI model. Objective number 7. Discuss one protocols used for remote communications. And objective number 8 is to understand how to design a network to use to TCP/IP and application protocols. So these objectives again can be synonymous to student intended learning outcome. So this will serve as your guide in order to know if you have learned all of the objectives by the end of this discussion. Okay. So this is just an overview of network protocols. We have already discussed that in the OSI reference model, since OSI reference model is another type of protocol. Okay, we will differentiate what is the difference between the TCP/IP and then the OSI reference model. The OSI reference model class is solely used now for the purpose of troubleshooting. Okay, kasi meron siya dibang iba't ibang layers. We have 7 layers if you still remember that. So, bawat layers na yon may function. So, if nagkaroon ng problema, iisa-isahin ng mga IT technicians or IT experts yung bawat layers na yon and para ma-assess nila kung saan yung naging problema. Kaya nga tinatawag na it is solely used for troubleshooting na lang. Okay. Now, pag sinabi nating troubleshoot, hanapin or solusyonan yung problema ng ating workstation or networking equipments or softwares. Now, the TCP/IP protocol class is known as the universal protocol used in the internet. Kasi ang protocols class, I'll just read it, enables effortless interchange among connected devices. Computer communications require a common protocol. Kasi pag yung pinapalaw natin na rules or regulation ay magkaiba, hindi tayo magmi-meet halfway. That's why it is important that we have a uniform rule or regulation that one must follow in order for us to understand or communicate efficiently with one another. Kasi kahit saang aspects, 'di ba? Meron tayo dapat uniformity or sinusunod na iisang rule or batas. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng para ma-achieve natin at least yung effortless communication or like sa atin, ba't tayo may batas para sa peace and order. Though hindi naman siya 100% na-achieve, at least nakapag-communicate tayo or meron tayong pinakaisang batas na sinusunod, kaya naman nakapag-integrate yung isa't isa at nagkakaroon ng balance. Okay, ang layo ng hugot ni ma'am. Okay, anyway, LANs or any type of networks, LANs, MANs, WANs, and so on, have multiple protocols. Though they are different network types, they must be able to integrate with one another. For example, a LAN must be able to integrate with a WAN. They must have a common ground, or their protocols must at least can exchange information from one another, or kailan nakapag-communicate sila. Meron silang sinusunod or meron silang intermediary sa mga protocols na meron sila para makapag-communicate sila sa isa't isa. Okay. Now, this illustration that you see here is an example of how multiple protocols are being transported over a network. So, I wouldn't explain it any further since I'll be sending this particular PowerPoint presentation to our GCs. Now, I'll be providing two formats, in PDF and in PowerPoint presentation. Now, the properties of a LAN protocol. So, I'll just read it. So, capabilities included in the properties of a LAN protocol or local area network. It enables reliable network links, communicate at relatively high speeds, and handle source and destination node addressing. Follow standards, particularly the IEEE 802 standard. So, si IEEE, alam nyo na yan, nabanggit natin siya sa OSI reference model. Isa siya sa organization na nagtatag or nag-establish ng OSI reference model. Now, ano po yung IEEE 802? So, si 802 is one of many codes that an organization provides para yun yung distinction nila kung para saan yung standard na yon. Si ISO, like for example, si ISO, segue ko lang mga nakshis. Si ISO, meron siyang standardizing na rules para sa educational institutions, meron din siya pang networking and so on. So lahat nun merong iba't ibang unique na code. Pero for this example sa LAN protocol nga, IEEE 802 standards yung code ni IEEE. Now, the capabilities in the properties of LAN protocol, do not forget to memorize that. It might be included in our quizzes and exams. Now, next is protocols have different strengths and drawbacks. Anyway, any particular part of a network or anything in this world has its cons and pros. The same goes with our network. Hindi rin nakaligtas yung ating network natin dyan. Kaya nga we have different choices para mapili lang natin kung ano yung mas maraming benefits or bagay sa ating network. Example, some but not all protocols are routable. Yes, it's true. Example number 2, some protocols have poor error checking. We will discuss that later on. Protocols typically used on LANs or local area network would be number 1, IPX/SPX, number 2, NetBIOS, number 3, AppleTalk, and number 4, the TCP/IP. But the TCP is the most widely used due to relation to Internet. Okay, LAN protocols and operating systems. Protocols typically used for communication between networks include the TCP/IP, IPX/SPX, NetBIOS, and AppleTalk. TCP/IP is nearly universally used today. Its popularity has caused the others listed above to become replaced or used only on much older networks. Legacy protocols. Now, when we say class legacy, hindi po ito pamana. When we say legacy in IT, typically it refers to a particular type of software or technology that is no longer updated. Okay, hindi na siya ina-update ng manufacturer or vendor. Kaya siya tinawag na legacy. Now, yung mga nabanggit natin ay, ito mga legacy protocols na example dito ay kadalasang protocol sa isang local area network. Do not forget, these following legacy protocols are a legacy protocol under local area network. Now, protocol number 1 would be the IPX/SPX. The IPX stands for Inter-Network Packet Exchange. It is developed by Nobel for Netware Operating System. So, si Nobel is a type of operating system. So, nag-develop siya ng sarili niyang protocol. Netware used with Ethernet bus, token ring, and ARCnet. So, yun yung ginagamit ni Netware nun sa networking hardware. It is modeled after Xerox Network System or XNS protocol. Now, the SPX dun sa IPX/SPX protocol naman stands for Sequence Packet Exchange. Again, Sequence Packet Exchange. It is a companion protocol to IPX. It is developed for the use of applications such as databases. So, alam nyo na yung database, lalo na pag nag-second year na kayo, tatakal nyo yan sa information management. Now, the IPX/SPX used on Netware servers through version 4. Netware has been replaced by Noble Open Enterprise Server. So, si Netware operating system, ang bagong version yan ngayon is si Noble Open Enterprise Server. So, this is what it looks like. So, I'll just show you a presentation. Okay. So, this is on a Mac computer, this is what it looks like. Itong Netware na yan. Ayan, operating system. So, ganito itsura niya. And also, this is a comparison of the OSI reference model and Noble Netware protocols, which I will not elaborate. Ayan. Kasi magtatagal tayo pag inisa-isa ko pa yung components niyan. Pero ito yung kanyang comparison between the OSI. Next is, this is just another example again of what Netware looks like. So, ayan. Si Netware by Novell, ayan. So, old system na siya, kaya siya legacy. Hindi na siya ina-update or hindi na siya madalas ginagamit. May gumagamit pa rin pero hindi na ganun. So, kung gusto niyo siya makita sa network niyo, ayan yung itsura niya. Novell/Anthem NE2000. Ayan. Next, legacy protocol number 2 would be the NetBIOS or NetBIOS Extended User Interface. This is developed for LAN Manager and LAN Server. It predates Windows NT. So ito, from the word itself, ginagamit siya sa Windows NT. This is developed by developed by Microsoft company. So NetBIO is used in early versions of Windows NT. So NetBIOS is not supported in Windows XP or Windows Server 2003 or higher. Now, the disadvantages of NetBIO, it cannot be routed and causes unnecessary traffic. So, imagine how old this particular protocol is. If yung Windows XP, if you think that Windows XP is a relatively old version of Windows operating system, then how much more if hindi na compatible doon yung NetBIOS kasi Windows NT lang siya. So, gano'n na siya katagal nag-i-exist. So, this is an example of a Microsoft Windows NT operating system version. So, si Windows NT, again, class, ito yung version ni Windows operating system. Para mabigyan ko kayo ng hint or clue, example nito is, the likes of it, pag sinabi natin versions would be Windows 10. Ayan. So, this is the interface of Windows NT. Ayan, ganyan yung itsura niya, napaka 2D. Okay. Now, this is how you're going to see or to troubleshoot your Windows MD. So, doon siya nakalagay. Ay, nadoble lang. Next, the third legacy protocol would be the AppleTalk. Now, the AppleTalk, obviously, from the name itself, AppleTalk, is this developed by the Apple company. Okay. AppleTalk is a peer-to-peer network protocol. It enables Macs computers to communicate without a server. AppleTalk Phase 2 is the updated or upgraded version of AppleTalk 1. It handled more network computers than Phase 1. Interoperable with heterogeneous networks hosting multiple protocols. AppleTalk is supported by Mac OS system hanggang Mac OS X 10.5 Leopard lang. So, this is what an AppleTalk typically looks like. Kaya sabi, it is used for peer-to-peer networking without the use of a server. So, you need this particular cable and then isasaksak mo siya sa inyong Mac computers. So, ganito yung kanyang setup. Ayan. So, you have, for example, a Mac computer. So, kaya ganito yung itsura kasi older version siya. So, ayan. Dito mo ilalagay yung AppleTalk na connector na to and then ko-connect mo siya sa another Mac computer para makapag-communicate sila sa isa't isa. through that process, makakapag-exchange sila ng files and documents over another device. Pero it is exclusive by Macintosh workstations. So, naiko-connect din siya sa Apple Laser Writer nun. So, this is what it looks like. Next class would be the last, pero hindi siya legacy protocol kasi ginagamit pa din natin siya. It is the TCP/IP protocol. So, it is also a type of local area network protocol. So, the TCP/IP protocol currently is the most widely used protocol suite and the protocol of the Internet. It is supported by most network server and workstation operating systems. Network device vendors write their operating system software for TCP or /IP. It is initially used on Unix systems and was rapidly adopted on many kinds of network. Now, the TCP/IP class, sila yung nagwagi or sila yung nanalo na sila yung hinil na mas preferred choice. And dahil preferred choice na siya ng mga iba't iba, so na-phase out na sila Apple Talk, na-phase out na sila NetBIOS, Windows operating system, Mac operating system, and other types of operating system now complies with the TCP/IP protocol. So dahil kay TCP/IP protocol, nakapag-integrate na ngayon yung iba't ibang vendors and manufacturers kasi nagko-comply na sila. Meron silang iisang protocol na sinusunod. So, yung Windows natin, nakapag-communicate na rin sa ibang computers na iba yung operating system. Now, the TCP/IP class initially was solely used on Unix systems or operating systems powered by Unix. Okay, doon pa lang siya nun. Bago siya napunta or bago siya inadapt nila Windows operating system, nila Mac OS, and so on. So, this is class A comparison of the OSI model then versus the TCP/IP protocol. So, if you'll see here, we have the application, presentation, and session layer ni OSI model na kasama na sa application layer ni TCP/IP protocol suite. And yung mga nakikita nyong FTP, Telnet, SMTP, sila yung mga iba't ibang protocols inside the TCP/IP protocol suite. So, do not be confused. So, yung protocol na TCP/IP, meron pa siyang protocol sa loob niya. Okay? And then, the transport layer, we have TCP and then UDP. Meron pa mga ibang included. And then, for the network, we have the IP routing protocols and also the ICMP. And then for the data link, we have the ARP and RARP. And for the physical, we have the coax and the different types of network, cable networks, and wireless technologies. Pero nowadays, our TCP is now reduced into 4 layers. Okay. So, this one, I have referenced it from a YouTuber. So, I find this the comparison between a burger patty over the TCP/IP to be amusing and also enticing to the eye. So, we have now 4. So, before nakita nyo, ayan, medyo hindi lang 4 yung components si TCP/IP protocol na layers. Ngayon, ang kinikilala na lang is 4 na layers. The application layer, the transport layer, the internet layer, and then the network layer, in which we will discuss all of them one by one. Now, the application layer. So, the application layer class, based on what you have learned from the OSI layer, the application layer contains what? What does it contain? The application layer class contains different types of applications where the user usually access. And a great example under the application layer on the TCP/IP is the HTTP and HTTPS protocol and the SSL, which we will discuss. So, every time that you're going to browse a website, you'll encounter HTTPS. So, ano po kaya yun? Let's head on to another slide. So, what is the difference between the HTTP, SHTTP, and HTTPS? Now, the HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It enables establishment of a web connection and provides for exchange of resources. Example would be displaying web page in a browser. while the SHTTP stands for Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It is used primarily in native HTTP communications, does not encrypt data and IP level communications, while the HTTPS uses secure sockets layer to implement security or SSL certifications and more common than SHTTP. Pero pinaka-focus natin is what is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. So, let's head on. So, again, HTTP stands for Hyper Transfer Protocol. It is used for viewing web pages. So, bakit kaya sinabi na it is used for viewing web pages? Saan ba natin kasi siya makikita? So, the protocol, kaya siya sinabing it is used for viewing web pages because every time that you're going to open your web browser, kahit Safari pa yan, Opera Mini, Firefox, Google Chrome, ayan. Laging every time na yung web, may i-enter tayong website or even the Google website itself, merong HTTP. So, hindi yan mawawala. This is a particular addressing of a website. Now, all information is sent in clear text sa HTTP but vulnerable to a hacker. Ayan. So, halimbawa may hacker or gusto niya ma-access yung account mo. So, pag may tinype ka or yung website na to merong kang in-access, lahat ng text na nababasa mo or lahat ng information inside that website na naka-HTTP lang yung address, pagka lumitaw siya sa kabilang server or kabilang network, habang nagdadaan siya sa internet, okay? Kung John Smith yung nakalabas, kunyari, ito lang yung content ng website mo, paglabas niya doon sa server habang nagta-travel siya, John Smith pa rin, hindi siya naka-protection. So, kung may hacker na gustong kunin yung mga data inside your website, makukuha niya as is or word by word or any particular type of information na hindi naka-hide or hindi naka-encrypt. Kasi HTTP lang siya. Okay. Well, the HTTPS class, it stands for Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It has a security feature. It encrypts the data that is being retrieved by HTTP. Ayan. So, paano kaya yun nangyayari? Nilalagyan ba niya ng virtual padlock or so on? Paano po kaya encryption? What is encryption? Anyway, I will just like to add the process of encryption will be added on your subject titled Information Assurance, okay, and Security. So, doon itatakal natin yung different hacking schemes, ayan, different types of hackers, and what is encryption and how does it happens. So, si encryption, didiscuss natin on to the next slide. So, every time, most of the websites nowadays has an HTTPS. Pagka walang HTTPS class, do not enter that website because you'll be risking your information or your data by entering that particular type of website. Bakit po? Kasi hindi siya secure. So, if ever you're going to type or if ever you're going to access that data and natapatan na may hacker, pwedeng ma-hack or ma-compromise yung mga files mo sa network. Kasi hindi siya secure. So, always make sure or be conscious that if you're going to browse a website, it must have an HTTPS. Anyway, class, most of the websites have HTTPS. Or meron naman siyang padlock. Makikita niyo doon sa may, dito sa gawin na to, meron siyang padlock sign. Ibig sabihin, secured yung website na yon. Anyway, si Google and other types of browsing, any types of internet browsers, nire-require na rin nila yung mga websites na merong HTTPS. Kung hindi, pinapenalize nila na hindi nila ilalagay sa search results kapag hindi siya secure. Inuuna niya yung secured na website. So, this is what it looks like. Ayan. So, for example, in an HTTP, ayan, may clear text ka, any number or name. Pag dumaan siya at naka-encrypt, so ganito yung HTTPS. So, pag HTTP, ganyan lang yung lalitaw. Pero pag naka-HTTPS siya, itong number na to, pag lumabas siya, every time na nagta-travel siya from one network to another, yung information na to, ganito yung lumalabas. And then, lilitaw lang yung clear text ulit na ganito kapag nakapasok na talaga siya doon sa network niya. For example, I were to access Facebook. So, my Facebook is HTTPS. Imposibleng hindi. So, secure siya. So, pag walang HTTPS yung website ng Facebook nyo, magtaka na kayo, baka dami account lang ng Facebook yon or fake Facebook website. Now, for example, I were to enter Facebook. Ayan. So, while, syempre, pag nag-ano tayo, maglo-load ngayon yung mag-a-access ako sa server ni Facebook and then si Facebook magsasend sa akin ng data niya para ma-access ko yung content ng website niya. So, ngayon, lahat ng mga text or any information inside my Facebook account will be encrypted as it travels from my network. From the Facebook, do sa source ng server ni Facebook up to my network. So, ito, clear text siya and then habang nagta-travel siya, ini-encode siya or ini-encrypt siya into characters. Then, pag nasa laptop ko na siya, mag-view na siya into clear text ulit. Nagigets ba? Ayun. So, ganun yung process ni encrypting. Para in case na magkaroon ng hacker, hindi niya ma-access on a real-time basis or hindi niya ma-access ng ganun kadali yung ating, yung ating information. Pero, the thing is, class, if nag-upgrade yung security features ng isang website, ganun din yung knowledge ng hacker eh. Nag-upgrade din. Kaya nga naman yung mga big website companies like Facebook, they have to be consistently updated with their website security or system security. Kasi kung sila nag-update, ganun din yung hacker. Meron na rin ibang ways para ma-download ni hacker or mabasa niya yung encrypt. Kung si encryption, nade-decrypt po yan. Pwede, kung si code ay, kumbaga si code ay nade-decipher din. So, ganun din si encryption, na i-encrypt, nade-decrypt din siya. So, merong way na din yung hacker. Pero, as naman nag-update din naman yung mga companies na kanilang security, kaya hindi na ganong at risk. Okay? Next is SSL. So, what is SSL and how it is linked to HTTPS? So, si SSL, it stands for Secure Sockets Layer. It is a protocol used to ensure security on the internet. It uses public key encryption to secure data. Now, the SSL is a form of online e-certificate na meron yung mga websites para mapatunayan na sila ay secured. So, pag may HTTPS sila, automatically meron na din silang SSL or Secure Sockets Layer. So, ito is kailangan para mapatunayan na verify yung website mo or secured siya. Ayan. So, yun lang si SSL. Now, the TLS is a new form of technology. It stands for Transport Layer Security. It is the latest industry standard cryptographic protocol, same as SSL, but more updated and advanced. It authenticates the server, client, and encrypts the data. So, this is the function of a TLS. Kung ano din yung ginagawa ni SSL, ganun din si TLS. Updated version lang siya. Now, next, so, under the application layer again, ano yung natackled na natin, class? We have tackled HTTP, ayan, HTTPS, and then SSL. So, next naman na protocol under the application layer on the TCP/IP suite is the SMTP or the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So, si SMTP, class, siya yung nagmamanage or nag-govern ng exchange of emails over a network. So, yun yung kanyang pinaprocess. If you were to send a message through email using Google Drive, Yahoo Mail, or any type of email addresses, ang nag-govern ng protocol na yun is si SMTP. Okay? SMTP again stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. It is designed for exchange of electronic mail. It has two implementations for email exchange between network systems, in local email systems for internet support. It provides alternative to FTP for file transfer and requires email address on receiving end and does not require logon, ID, and password. So later we will discuss what is FTP or file transfer protocol para malinawan kayo kung bakit siya kinumpara doon. We have two-part message, address header, and text message. It is supported in TCP by connection-oriented service. So this is an example of how SMTP works. So from the main server, going to send an email. So for example, I have here, I will log into my Gmail account. I'll send an email to one of my students. And this email will travel through the Google server farm kasi si Google yung client ay yung aking yung ako yung client niya. So, si Google yung ginamit ko na website or email service provider. So, from the Google web server, dadaan siya sa server, and then it will be encrypted, and then it will now be sent to another email. So, yung ganong process, simpleng pagsisend ng email na yun, meron palang protocol. And it has a complicated process. Okay, next is the FTP, TFTP, SFTP, and NFS. So, I'll just read it. FTP or File Transfer Protocol allows transfer of data between remote devices. Transmissions may be in the form of binary or ASCII formatted files. Transmission ensured by connection-oriented service. So, pag sinabi natin connection-oriented service, it refers to TCP kasi connection-oriented service siya. But the limitation of FTP is it cannot transfer portion of file. Lahat yon sa iisang folder. Hindi ka pwedeng mamili. Now, the TFTP is intended while the TFTP naman class, it is rarely used, is intended for transferring small files. Example of use is to transfer data to enable diskless workstation to boot, connectionless protocol running UDP instead of TCP. So, TFTP is rarely used nowadays kasi we have other means to transfer small files na and much more faster and less complicated like Bluetooth and other ways. Ayan. NFS is Sun Microsystems' alternative to FTP. It uses connection-oriented protocol 2 running in TCP and used mostly on Unix and Linux-based systems. So, si Sun Microsystems, meron siya sariling operating system. You may look it up, Unix and Linux OS. Ayan. So, ang ginagamit nilang pang file transfer protocol is si NFS. Okay, so this is the process on how the FTP or file transfer protocol works. The standard protocol that is used to transfer files between computers and servers over a network. So, yan yung function ni FTP. So, ano po bang process lang yung ginagamitan ng FTP if we can communicate or we can easily exchange files over the internet? What's the use of the long and tedious process of FTP? Now, here is it. We have two couple ways to transfer files using FTP. Either we use an FTP software or FTP client, or we just use our internet browser. Now, the FTP kadalasan ngayon ginagamit siya sa pag-upload ng website. Kasi ang website class, halimbawa ikaw yung nag-code. Sa ano mo kadalasan ginagawa yan pag meron na kayong WS01 or WS02 na subject, kadalasan tinatype niyo yan diba sa Notepad, Note++. So, tinatype niyo yung code. Hindi naman siya inaabot minsan ng isang Notepad lang, diba? Magkaka-integrate yan, then ililink nyo na lang isa-isa. So, once natapos na kayo sa design, gusto nyo ngayon siyang i-upload sa isang hosting website or hosting server. So, para ma-upload mo siya, hindi siya parang nag-upload ka lang ng picture sa Facebook. Hindi po ganun kadali. You need an FTP client or you need to use your internet browser. Kailangan mo ng FTP or File Transfer Protocol para ma-transfer mo yung mga files mo na yun sa website sa inyong intended host. I'll also include a YouTube video para makita nyo kung paano nag-process yan. Naalala ko nung college, pinroject yata namin yan. Pero bootstrap lang ang ginamit namin. Pag sinabing bootstrap, automatic na yun or pre-template na nakadesign na yun na website. Then, babaguhin mo na lang yung design and lalagay mo yung content mo. Pero kailangan mo siyang i-download. So, para magamit mo siya or ma-edit mo siya offline. Once na natapos na kaming mag-design doon gamit yung bootstrap ng website, ipinapa-upload sa amin ng instructor namin yun doon sa 00 web host. So, doon ilalagay doon yung parang pinaka-imbakan or lagayan ng website. Independent website. So, para ma-transfer namin yung files na yon sa web host, 00 web host nga, ng libre, gumamit kami ng FTP client. So, noong una nahirapan kami kasi di naman sa amin tinuro, pinagawa lang. So, ang ginawa namin, parang research project din namin kasi yon. So, ang ginawa ko, naghanap kami sa YouTube and then gumamit kami ng FTP client and then doon na namin na i-upload yung website. So, doon ko rin na-realize na hindi pala ako ganun kadali yung pagtapos ka ng mag-code ng website, madali na lang mag-upload, mag-upload ka na lang kabod sa internet, upload lang ng files, hindi pala. Kailangan mo ng FTP client para doon. Okay, so if you're going to use an internet browser, pero using the FTP protocol technology, you need to remove the HTTP and then palitan mo ng FTTP and then type the web hosting website here. So, dun mo na, or localhost or kung anumang address kung nasaan yung inyong file. So, this is what it looks like. Ayan. This is an example of what FTP looks like if you use a web browser. Now, you can also log in anonymously. So, some FTP servers will require an account with the username and password, but some do not. So, this is an example of a popular pre-FTP client. It is called FileZilla, by the way, class. So, I have here a new tab. So, let us search. Now, to continue where we left off, so we have discussed what is a FTP or a file client. So, this is what a FileZilla or an FTP client looks like. And one of the popular FTP client software is FileZilla. I have personally used FileZilla in my college years, and it wasn't easy to learn at first kasi medyo mahirap siya i-navigate. So, trial and error din sa paghanap ng instruction because it was given as a research assignment for us to upload the website that we have created through 00 web hosting. Now, file transfer protocol can be used to upload files directly over a server. Pero its main function, kadalasan class, is that it uploads file or your website files through a web host. Now, let me just show you what FileZilla looks like and how to find it on your browser. Now, first you need to type FileZilla on whatever browser you're using, and then you'll see something like this. So, I'll hover over my mouse on this link, and then you'll be directed to FileZilla. So, as you can see, it says here, FileZilla, the free FTP solution or file transfer protocol solution. So what you're going to do is you'll download this one. You have to choose between FileZilla client download or FileZilla server. So I do this, I download all of them. This one is for cross-platform. Sabihin, kahit anong operating systems, pwede siya. While the FileZilla server is for Windows operating system lang. Hindi siya pwede kay Mac, hindi siya pwede kay Linux, and so on. So once that you have successfully downloaded FileZilla, you'll see something like this on the PowerPoint presentation. Ayan. So makikita nyo. So this one on the local site, dito nakalocate yung mga files na gusto nyong i-upload na nasa computer nyo. And then on the remote side, dito naman mapupunta yung mga uploading na files na gusto nyong i-upload doon sa web server nyo. So, okay. So, for the host, username, and password, you'll be needing a web host. And the free web hosting that I could find, and I have already tried, is 00 web host. So, what you need to do is to type 00 web host. If you don't have an account, sign up. If you have an account, you can log in. For signing up, it will ask for your email, password, and then another password again. And then, once you sign up, magkakaroon ka na ng username, you just configure some stuff, and then, yun na, pwede ka nang mag-upload through FileZilla. So, pag ito nag-upload, mapupunta na siya dito sa may remote site. And then, ayan, makikita nyo na siya. Hanggang pag na-upload na siya successfully, naka-upload na siya sa web host nyo, and then, running na yung inyong website. So, bakit po? Kasi yung website natin, di ba, it contains multiple types of files. Meron tayong naka-notepad natin siya kadalasang kinocode, right? If you have WS01 or WS02. And then, di ba pinapangalanan nila, pag basic yung ating website na ginawa, .html. So, yan, magkakalink-link lang para magkakonnect-connect siya. Ngayon, pag i-upload natin siya, we need an FTP client and then we need a web host. So, kadalasan yung mga web hosting sites like 00 web host, nag-offer na sila ng pre-domain. So, si domain yun yung pangalan ng website nyo. Okay? So, once that you have already used FTP client, ayan, successfully, you can now upload it. So, this is what an FTP does. Okay, next is the SFTP, which stands for Secure File Transfer Protocol. It is similar to FTP but with added security features. Kagaya nung concept ni HTTP and then HTTPS, in which the data, between the exchange of data between your server and then from your computer or workstation, naka-encrypt siya habang nagta-travel siya sa network. So, hindi siya ma-access ganun-ganun kadali ng hacker. So, ganun yung SFTP. It is a more secure option of uploading your files online. Okay, next is the TFTP, which stands for Trivial File Transfer Protocol. Not used for transferring files over the internet again, but rather on a local area network transfer. So, hindi siya pagta-transfer from one network to another. Sa isang network lang sila pwede mag-transfer. It's a very simple file transfer protocol and not used to transfer files over the internet. It is mainly used for transferring files within a local area network. Now, this one is not that much used na kasi we have other options or other ways of transferring more faster and smoothly from your local area network. You can use Bluetooth or other types of technologies na. So, hindi na ganong ginagamit si TFTP. Next class, again, let's have a recap before we end our topic for the application layer. Let's have a recap on the components or protocols inside the application layer of the TCP/IP suite. Again, diniscuss natin, number 1 is si HTTP. Number 2, si HTTPS. Si HTTPS, siya yung website. Pag may padla kayong nakita, ibig sabihin HTTPS yon. And an HTTPS has an SSL or an e-certificate. So, to prove na yung website na yun ay secure. And Google, or mostly Google, governs that or checks if siya ay merong secure. If hindi, ipa-flag niya yon or hindi niya ililitaw sa search result niya sa dulo pa. Okay? Or magwa-warning siya na walang SSL certificate yung website na yon. Kaya sometimes, class, you have, minsan pag may na-access kayo website, sabihin, this website is not secure kasi wala siyang HTTPS. So, yun, na-detect ni Google. Okay? Next class is, ano pa ba? HTTP, HTTPS, SHTTP, and then ang natackled natin is yung SSL, which is an e-certification for verify na secure yung ating website. That is for website browsing. Next naman na component ni application layer is si SMTP, which governs exchange of email from one network to another. So, yung pag-send pala natin ng email, may process din yan nakalakip. Hindi lang ganun kadali. Okay? Next is after SMTP, ano pa? Yung file transfer protocol natin, FTP. Secure way to transfer files over a server. Pero same function as FTP is SFTP, and then transferring files over a local network but not over the internet is TFTP. Okay, so those are the components on the application layer. Actually, we have other types in which I will discuss na lang as we progress from other chapter. But those are the main components under the application layer. Okay, so let's go back to the Krabby Patty here that you see here on the illustration. Now we are done with the application layer or the tomato. Now let's go down to the lettuce or the transport layer. Ayan, nakakagutom ano? Especially if you're watching this pre-recorded video discussion on breakfast, then sa dinner or sa lunch, diba? Okay, so let's go to the transport layer. The two components under transport layer of the TCP/IP protocol, we have the TCP and then the UDP. Pero obviously, ang nanalo is si TCP or mas preferred is si TCP kesa kay UDP, which we will explain why later. Okay, kaya nga TCP/IP yung naging pinaka-main pangalan na nung protocol na topic natin ngayon. Now, how the TCP/IP works? So, the TCP is a transport protocol, layer 4 in the OSI model. It establishes sessions between network nodes. It uses sequences and acknowledges frames. So, a sequence number is placed on the TCP frame header. So, TCP has a frame header. So, later on, we'll also explain what is the function of a frame header. But naman may header pang ganyan? Nakakasakit naman sa ulo. Dagdag memorize na naman. Okay? Pero nag-include ako ng explanation yan, in-depth explanation with visual so that you can see how it works. Okay, but let me just read the main TCP functions here. Again, the TCP is located in the transport layer, same din sa OSI transport layer. Ganun yung counterpart din niya. Now, for the function number 1, it monitors for session requests. Function number 2, it establishes sessions with other TCP nodes. And function number 3, it transmits and receives data. And function number 4, it is used for closed transmission sessions. So this is what a TCP header looks like, or a TCP frame, rather. So, dito yung pinagdadaanan ng ating internet data as it enters the TCP frame. Okay, and then we have sample TCP ports which has a counter port. For example, port number 1 is used for multiplexing, port 80 is used for HTTP web browsing. So later we'll discuss that bakit may mga ports, para saan yung mga ports na yon. Okay, so let's start. So again, TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol. So after the application layer gets its data from whatever program you are using, like what you see here in the illustration, okay? So I have a script dito sa topic na to kasi minsan nag-i-stutter ako for this particular topic kasi napakadaming naka-include. I have written it down here. So for example, gumamit ka ng SMTP, HTTP, and FTP client, kahit ano pa ginamit mo. Pero dito sa example, gawin nating HTTP kunwari. Nag-upload ka or in-access mo si HTTP. Okay. The data is then transported into the transport layer through a port. So, for reference, please see slide 45. So, let's go back to slide 45. So, HTTP daw yung ginamit natin sa TCP. So, anong port kaya siya mapupunta? So, dito napunta siya sa port 80. So, bakit kaya may port pa? Nakakalito na, mama. Okay. So, each port is assigned to a different protocol in the application layer. For example, port 80 is assigned to, ayan, so may port na. Port 80 is assigned to HTTP. So, each layer has a different protocol na ka-assign sa kanya so that the TCP would know where the data is coming from. So, for example, port 80 siya duman, HTTP ginamit nito. So, web browsers usually go to port 80. Kasi HTTP involved, so port 80 siya. Okay. Once the TCP gets the data, it chops it off into packets like this one. So this is the clearest representation that I could find on the internet. So the data that you are trying to access from a website, for example, china-chop off siya into packets like this one, where they can individually take the fastest route over the internet. To put it back together properly, the TCP puts an header on each of this one. So kaya nga minsan class, ayan. Kunyari, ito yung website. So, minsan pagka, di ba, nagka-problema dun sa signal natin, ang nangyayari is, pag hindi kunyari natapos yung paglo-load or humina bigla yung ating internet, di ba minsan yung picture makikita nyo hindi pa tapos, kalahati lang or parang mayroong glitch dun sa ibang part or parang may part na sobrang pixelized. Kasi, yung bawat data sa may internet is pinipira-piraso pa yan ni TCP. Tapos, pinipira-piraso niya, tapos dinadala niya dun sa network mo. So, ganun yung nangyayari. Okay. So, you see here the TCP protocol or Transmission Control Protocol. So, let us say na yung example na to is ako ay nag-a-access sa website ni Facebook. Now, saan siya pupuntang port? So, maghahanap ngayon tayo dito sa slide 45. So, halimbawa, ang involved dito is web browsing. So, saan port kaya siya papasok? So, maghanap nga kayo nakatapat sa HTTP web browsing. So, ayun. So, port 80. So, next. Here, so ngayon pinili natin yung HTTP. Ngayon yung ating internet data, papasok na siya from the application layer, pupunta na siya sa transport layer. So, para mapunta siya sa transport layer, hahanapin niya yung designated port sa kanya, which is port 80. Ayan. So, from this port, pupunta na ngayon siya sa transport layer. And then, once na it enters the transport layer, all the files on your website will be, hahati-hatiin siya into packets. Ayan. Like this one. Once na nahati na siya, ngayon, magiging puzzle piece siya. Pag napunta ngayon siya sa browser mo, para hindi siya magkagulo-gulo, si TCP nag-a-assign ng header. And each header contains instructions on where it should be placed and ordered. Para pag napunta na siya, dahil pira-piraso siya at napasok na siya doon sa network mo, na-access mo na siya, magiging mabubuo siya ng kung ano talaga yung itsura niya. Now, this other illustration here that you see is one with TCP protocol, and the other, yung gulo-gulo yung web page, is without a TCP protocol. So, class, napapansin nyo kung paano yung nagiging function ni TCP is pagka minsan, di ba, mabagal yung inyong internet connection. So, pagka mabagal, minsan makikita nyo yung images, pag nag-load sila, minsan parang may glitch sa dulo, biglang na-pixelized, or parang nahati yung picture. Kasi, nag-stop yung loading ni TCP dahil biglang humina yung internet connection mo. So, yun yung explanation ng scenario na yun. Doon siya pumupunta kay TCP. So, nabuo na siya. So, yun yung function ni TCP header. Kaya tayo merong TCP frame kanina. Kasi yun yung pinagdadaanan ni TCP para pagka pinira-piraso niya, mabubuo ulit niya na parang puzzle piece yung isang web page. Okay? So, it happens anything that you access from the internet as it travels from one network to another. Ganun yung ginagawa ni TCP. Now, the TCP is a communication between two computers that needs to be good and reliable to guarantee that is received correctly. Okay? So, this illustration, ayan, between, kunyari, let us assume that this network are from two different types of, these workstations, rather, are from two different types of network. Now, next slide. If your TCP is properly loading, then your web page would look as what it should. Okay? And then without TCP, this is what it looks like on the right side part. So, bali-baligtad yung mga web pages, magkakagulo-gulo yung mga text kasi hindi nila alam kung paano nung hinati sila, di nila alam kung paano yung magiging order nila pagbalik. Nahirapan silang buuin yung parang pinaka-puzzle piece. Next naman, TCP is a connection-oriented protocol, meaning that it must be first have an acknowledgement session. So, both computers who want to communicate with one another must verify a connection before any connection takes place. So, meron pala silang verification din na nagaganap. For example, from workstation 1 connecting to another network, you must have an acknowledgement session. Punta siya dito. And once na-acknowledge na siya nung kabilang network, ayan, yung dito sa my left side, babalik ulit siya. So, isabihin na acknowledge na siya, step 2, and then step 3, acknowledgement is received. So, isabihin, pwede na silang mag-exchange ng packets or internet data. Now, the process of UDP. So, UDP stands for User Diagram Protocol. It is a connectionless protocol unlike TCP, which is connection-oriented. It also operates on the OSI layer 4 like TCP, and it is an alternative to TCP when high reliability is not required. Frame has a 4-field header and data, same with TCP but with less header field and data. It relies only on checksum to ensure reliability. It is also a connectionless protocol, meaning no flow control, sequencing, or acknowledgement na nagaganap. So, walang ganito kagaya nitong sa may slide 54. Okay. Next is, this is what a UDP frame looks like. So, kung titignan nyo, i-compare nyo sa TCP frame, mas maraming pinagdadaanan unlike sa UDP frame. Kasi si UDP is a connectionless oriented protocol nga. So, it wants to establish a session. So, ayan, nagbabato siya ng packet or internet data from one network to another, but it does not guarantee a smooth data delivery. So, ayan, makikita nyo. So, bato lang siya ng bato ng internet data or packet sa kabilang network. Okay, so this is a comparison between the TCP and UDP. Now, for the connection, TCP is more connection-oriented while UDP is connectionless. For the sequencing, TCP numbers each packet so they can be arranged in a sequence by the recipient. Yun nga, yung bawat packet ay merong header, and bawat header merong mga instructions kung saan sila dapat pumesto or paano sila ma-order. Okay? Next is the UDP. The UDP sends the packets without numbering. So, kaya pag bumalik siya, hindi mo alam kung paano i-order niya. Okay? In regards to speed, TCP is lower. Because it has an acknowledgement pa, inaayos pa niya, making sure na yung packets yung kinalalagyan niya ay maayos. Unlike UDP, it is much more faster kasi establish lang siya na establish ng session. For the reliability, however, TCP has a high reliability while the UDP has a low reliability. And for the header size, packets are heavy because of overheads. So, medyo mas maano sila kasi meron silang overheads or instructions na nakalagay na dapat ito'y number 1 muna na puzzle piece, ito'y number 2. Para pag binalik, napunta siya doon sa nag-a-access na website, maganda yung kanyang pagkakaayos-ayos as is pa din. Okay? Next is, the UDP has lightweight packets with minimal headers kasi wala siyang ganong instructions, konti lang instruction ng header niya, kaya naman gulo-gulo yung UDP. For the error detection or correction, error checking and error recovery, meron si TCP. Pero error checking, meron din si UDP but no recovery. Corrupted packets are simply discarded and not requested again. Unlike the TCP. Di pa pansinin nyo, pagka mabagal yung internet, kunyari nagfe-Facebook tayo, hindi na load ulit. If we try to refresh it again, at nag-load na siya correctly, makikita mo na yung mga pictures, yung mga icons, yung mga files dun sa Facebook, ganun pa din, walang nabago, unlike dun sa UDP. For the acknowledgement sent by the recipient, so sa UDP naman walang acknowledgement. Si TCP nanghingi siya ng acknowledgement na na-receive nung padadalan niya na network na okay siya, na-receive siya ng maayos. For the transfer method, TCP uses stream while UDP uses individual packet. So, yung stream meron siyang pinaka-organized na lagayan. While the UDP, yung mga individual packets or internet data, bato lang siya ng bato ng ganyan. For the congestion control, yes, meron po yung TCP, obviously. Mayroon silang parang traffic enforcer, nag-aayos nung daanan ng mga packets or internet data from one network to another, while the UDP does not. Kasi bato lang siya ng bato ng session or internet data or packet sa kabilang network. For the applications, TCP supports file transfer, email, and web browsing, while UDP has video conferencing and gaming and broadcast. So si UDP kadalasan ginagamit siya for video conferencing. Example of applications or website that utilizes UDP are streaming websites like Netflix. Kasi si Netflix madami sa kanya nag-a-access. From all over the world, sinusupplyan nila, nag-i-stream sila. Marami nag-a-access ng kanilang mga streams of shows. So, kaya kailangan nila ng faster way para ma-deliver yon dun sa clients nila. And that's why they use UDP. Pero, mas reliable pa din yung TCP. Okay, so that's all you need to know between the TCP and UDP. Pero all in all, the one that we commonly use or mostly use is the TCP or Transmission Control Protocol. Next, let's go back to the Krabby Patty again. So we have already discussed the application layer, the transport layer. We have discussed what is the difference between TCP and UDP. Next is the internet layer. So for the internet layer, dito naman papasok si IP or Internet Protocol. So how does IP works? So I'll just read the basic IP functions. The functions of IP is that it manages data transfer, packet addressing, packet routing, fragmentation, and detection of errors. Addressing is essential for data transfer and routing. So we have two types of IP address. We have IP version 4 and IP version 6. Now, IP version 4 is a 32-bit network node, while IP version 6 is a 128-bit node address. Connectionless protocol. It provides network-to-network addressing and routing information. Changes packet size when size varies with network. Now, DATAGRAM, TCP segment formatted with IP header. Okay. So, let's now talk about the IP. So, once that it has received the transport layer at dadali na siya sa internet layer, ano ang ginagawa ni IP address sa mga packets? Ayan po yung packets, yung parang envelope na yan. Yun yung kaninang data or internet data na pinasa natin sa website. Once that it is accomplished, ang ginagawa ni IP address, nag-a-assign siya ng origin and destination IP address. So what's the need for that? So that both networks would know saan galing yung packet na yon at saan siya dapat mapunta, sa yung destination niya. Okay, saan galing siyang IP? So si IP address class can be likened to your mailing address. So parang residential address natin siya. For example, umorder tayo sa Shopee. So saan siya galing? Kunwari galing siya sa Tondo. Ayan, sa ABC Company Tondo. Yun yung origin IP address niya. And then saan siya dadalhin? Sa CICT Department, Sumakab, Cabanatuan City. So yun yung kanyang destination IP address. Okay, gets na? So once that it had entered the internet layer, yun na yung inassign na lang siya ng addressing, saan siya galing at saan siya papunta. Next class, after the internet layer, nakapag-assign na ng origin niya, ngayon, pupunta na siya or papasok na siya sa network layer. So ano naman ang nangyayari sa packets na to once it enters the network layer? Ang gagawin naman niya sa network layer, let's see here, balik muna tayo ulit dito. So, dito naman papasok si MAC address. And previously, from what we have discussed about MAC address and LLC, MAC address is the physical address of your networking hardware. So, your workstations like laptops, computers, even your smartphones, network devices like routers, has its own NIC and has its own MAC address. So, yan. So, ngayon, meron na siyang IP address. Doon naman, kikilalanin niya kung anong device yung papasukan niya sa pamamagitan ng MAC address. Once na nalaman niya, ay nag-a-access sa akin isang smartphone, ay nag-a-access sa akin ay isang network dito na isang workstation na laptop, yun, doon na siya papasok. Okay? So, that's what it happens. So, once that it goes to the MAC address, it will go to the right physical machine after the network cable. So, pag nakapasok na siya dun sa ating mga workstations, paikot-ikot lang yan. Lalabas na siya, papunta sa cable, back to where he came from, and then balik ulit sa process ni application, transport layer, internet, and the network layer. So, paikot-ikot lang po. Nagets po? Okay. So, that concludes the summary on how the TCP/IP protocol works. So, once that it goes down into the internet layer, the packets will now go to the network layer. And the network layer in the TCP/IP protocol class is a combination of the network. Sa network layer, it's a combination of 3 layers: network, data link, and then the physical layer. So once the packet goes into the network layer, a MAC address will now serve as their guide. So iga-guide sila kung saan silang pupuntang node. This is where the data packets will go where it should be. Sa physical machine siya mapupunta para ma-access. Hanggang sa, halimbawa, for example, nag-Facebook ako, nasa network layer na yan, and then pupunta siya dun sa aking specific na workstation through the distinction of MAC address. Dahil may IP address siya, kikilalanin ngayon ni IP address kung may MAC address ba yung nag-a-access na node or machine. Once na-determine niya na may MAC address yung aking laptop, pwede na ngayon siyang pumasok dun sa aking screen. So, mabubview ko na siya in real time. And then, pagbabalik ulit siya sa network, sa server kung saan siya nanggaling sa Facebook para makapag-upload and download ng data, kasi pabalik-balik lang yung process na yan, kailangan pa rin niya ng MAC address. So this is where your internet packet will go back to the network cables or wireless signals back to its original source, then the process goes on and on and on. So yun po yung process ni TCP/IP. The same with the OSI layer, but the difference is that mas pinadali at mas pinabilis yung process. Okay. So that will be all in regards to the overall process of the TCP/IP protocol. Now, there are particular parts of the TCP/IP na hindi natin na-discuss. So, i-discuss natin siya kasi wala siyang specific category or label sa layer. For example, would be the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol or the DHCP. So, this is what it looks like. So, ito kadalasan, ina-access nyo lang siya class kapag kayo ay magko-configure ng inyong router. So, dito, pwede kasi tayo mag-assign ng static tsaka ng dynamic na IP address. If kinlik natin yung obtain an IP address automatically, ibig sabihin, hinahayaan natin si router na mag-decide ng IP address para sa atin. So, ibig sabihin, dynamic siya, automatic. Pag naman gusto natin ng static IP address, choose natin yung use the following IP address. Tayo magta-type ng IP address and then default na yung subnet mask and then default gateway. So, we have two ways in assigning a DHCP settings. First is to choose dynamic. Automatic nang mamimili is si router, and then the next one is to choose the static. Tayo yung magta-type ng IP address. So, the function of a dynamic host configuration is that it enables automatic assignment of IP address. It is the process of assigning address by the DHCP server. DHCP server lists an IP address on your new computer, and then it also may be given a list that does not expire. Okay, so maintindihan nyo itong DHCP process na to once na nag-configure na kayo or nag-set up na kayo ng IP address nyo at nag-set up kayo ng router, paano mag-peer-to-peer. Kapag ito kadalasan ginagawa ito dapat sa Net 01, pero baka ma-integrate na lang siya sa Net 02 kasi kailangan ng client PC, server PC, tsaka isang laptop para ma-integrate lang how the DHCP works. So, ang gagawin nyo, ang ginagawa kadalasan DHCP settings namin sa TESDA rin, ginagawa din to sa CSS and C2 sa TESDA. If you have free time or balik na sa normal lang lahat, you may take it. Libre lang naman yan, may certificate pa kayo na magagamit nyo, lalo na pag magtatrabaho na kayo. Okay. Now, the thing about DHCP server is, yun nga, pwede tayo mag-assign, binigyan tayong dalawang choice, tayo mag-a-assign ng IP address or hindi na. Itong process na to, hindi to mawawala every time na lahat ng kumukonect sa router or nagpapakonect nito. Hindi lang natin napapansin kasi ang nagsiset up nito is yung mga tauhan sa ating internet service provider. Sila na kasi yung nagko-configure and nag-aayos ng ating router kahit di na natin madalas na encounter si dynamic. Pero if ever na ba wala kayong wifi pero minsan nakakonect kayo sa wifi, wala kayong wifi sa bahay, pero halimbawa nagpunta kayo sa office, tapos nakakonect kayo sa wifi, ma'am, paano kaya ako nagkakaroon ng IP address? Nagkakaroon ka ng IP address because automatically, the router that you were accessing from gives you a automatic IP address. Now, if you want your own IP address, you should go to the DHCP settings and then type your desired IP address. And pag tinype mo yung IP address mo, dapat hindi siya magkamuka. Kasi magre-result yan into an error if magkamuka yung IP address ng isang workstation tsaka another workstation sa iisang kinokonektahan nila na network device or network. Okay? So, next is the ICMP. So, the ICMP class, it refers to Internet Control Message Protocol. The ICMP helps IP track error conditions. Most common error condition when a node, router, or switch is unavailable. Ping utility. It is used to test a network connection or presence of a node by using ICMP. ICMP can report a TCP or UDP port if it is unavailable, if the destination network cannot be reached, or if network service cannot be accessed. ICMP can also be used by attackers to immobilize a computer. Okay, so what is the process of IMCP? So I'll just pause this video and then include a video discussion in order for you to assess what it does. So how the ICMP protocol exactly works? So this is a video that explains the reason how ICMP works. So I might skip some part. I just want you to show the process or the summarized process of how ICMP works. So I'll just play the video.
Request and an echo reply are a couple of very common examples of this. You type in ping and an IP address. What really is happening is an ICMP request is made to another server, and hopefully you're receiving an ICMP reply. We call those a ping request and a ping reply, but behind the scenes, that's exactly what's happening. Now, this is really useful for troubleshooting. It's very useful for bad guys to be able to do reconnaissance of your network as well. Imagine being able to ping all of the systems in a particular subnet and find out who responds back. Sometimes that's not what you want. That's too much information for the bad guys. And you'll notice that most firewalls, one of their default firewall configurations is to disallow ICMP packets to go through the firewall. Now, there are other methods of ICMP that can do things like redirect different network connections. You could tell a router that that network's no longer located over here, it's located over in somewhere else. That might be a legitimate message, or that might be a completely illegitimate message. That might be the bad guys trying to redirect traffic over to their machines. So usually those are also restricted. At least those particular ICMP types of messages may be restricted. And if you ever go out somewhere and you see that you're trying to ping a device and you're trying to ping and it says, sorry, the destination host you're trying to ping is unreachable, that's because either that device really isn't on the network, or our security administrator was very smart and restricted access of ICMP through the firewall. No matter how much you try, you're never going to get a response back. Another useful network management protocol is SNMP. That stands for Simple Network.
Okay, so that is a short explanation about how IMCP work. So usually you ping, and then when you use the ping utility or the ping code on your CMD, then it will show the IP that wants, or the IP address of a workstation or a node that wants to connect with you. But the problem with that is hindi siya ganun ka-secure, so pag napasok siya or na-detect siya ni hacker, malalaman niya yung mga IP addresses ng mga nagko-connectahan or gumagamit ng ping utility na yon. So yun yung problema with IMCP, Internet Control Message Protocol. So hindi siya masyadong ginagamit, minsan lang. Okay, for mini troubleshooting purposes. Okay, so now that we have explained what is under application layer, transport layer, internet layer, last would be the network layer. How does it work? Now, under the network layer, we have the ARP, or Address Resolution Protocol. It enables sender to retrieve MAC address, process of obtaining MAC address, and sending node sends ARP broadcast frame. So technically, class, the ARP, or Address Resolution Protocol, it manages the process of how the LLC and the MAC address were to assign or guide the IP address na halimbawa, di ba yung mga MAC addresses natin, it is a physical address of our nodes. Si workstation natin, yung ating smartphones, yung ating mga network devices, or even printers na may NIC built-in ay merong MAC addresses. Now, the IP addresses will not give you or assign you an IP address if hindi niya alam kung anong klase kang device or anong klase kang node. Kaya naman nagkaroon ng MAC address. Through MAC address, nakilala ni IP kung anong klaseng device ka or anong klaseng node ka, papayag na siya na makipag-coordinate sa iyo, or papayag na siya na bigyan ka ng IP address. So that is the function of ARP protocol. Next is the Reverse Address Resolution Protocol. So I'll just read this one. It is used by, okay, now for the RARP, or Reverse Address Resolution Protocol, it is used by network node to determine its IP address. It is used by applications to determine IP address workstation or server. So, it is almost the same as ARP, but the difference is that ang direct niya is IP address. Okay? Next slide would be about the ND, or Neighbor Discovery Protocol. So the ND uses messages and other means to discover the physical addresses and more information about computer and routers on a network. It is similar to ARP but can also discover physical addresses. Pareha siya sa ARP, pero sa ARP kasi pinaka-focus niya is si MAC address para ma-assignan siya ng IP address. Pero si ND, or si Neighbor Discovery Protocol, aside dun sa MAC address, kaya din niya i-discover yung physical addresses, configuration information, the address prefixes of other hosts, the location of nearby routers, and whether a computer or router can be reached. It provides info about whether an address has been changed or your NIC or network interface card was replaced. So, bakit kailangan niyang ma-detect if yung NIC mo is napalitan? Changing your NIC meant that you're also changing your MAC address. Kasi yung NIC natin sa workstation, nasa loob yan eh. Nandun mismo naka-hard code yung ating MAC address. So, pag nagpalit ka ng NIC, ganun din yung MAC address ng inyong workstation. IP version 6 also replaces the use of ARP with the use of ND. So itong neighbor discovery or ND protocol is compliant siya sa IP version 6 kasi si ARP sa IP version 4 lang siya gumagana. Okay? Or pinaka gumagamit. Okay. Now, the history and role of the TCP/IP. So, last time pinanaggusan nyo about yung history of the internet. So, if you know the history of the internet, then you might have already know what is the role or what is the history of the TCP/IP. But if you have already forgotten it, we will discuss it na ngayon. So, what is the history of the TCP/IP? Now, the Advanced Research Project Agency or ARPA has a networking goal. It wants to enable university, faculty, research, and defense department to communicate. That's why ARPANET was born. Kasi bakit po? Meron kasing impending na war, and also there is dahil dun sa nagkaroon ng World War I, they have discovered na telephone lines are not that effective. Other means of communications are not that effective if they were to be bombed by a nuclear or magkaroon ng other natural disasters. Kung isa lang yung pinaka-center ng ating internet. That's why nga yung ating internet is walang particular organization or specific individual na nagmamanage. Kasi dinesign sila na magka-connect-connect. It is a series of communication from one ISP to another, from one network to another. So kung may masira man isang network, may internet pa din. Okay? Wag lang masisira lahat ng network kasi wala na talagang internet. Wala siyang central na source. Kasi kung may central source siya at nasira yung central source na yun, then mawawala na yung internet. Pero itong TCP/IP, they were designed that way. That's why the internet is magkaka-connect-connect. If nawala yung isa, pero okay pa din yung ibang network, then magpapatuloy lang din yung internet. Now, through the ARPANET, it is difficult at first because computer manufacturers were very perpetrary, so not all computers could communicate with each other. So, yun yung naging challenge or nag-pose na challenge sa ARPA or lalo na sa dinevelop nila na ARPANET. Kasi yung mga computers noon, di ba nga kaya meron tayong tinatawag na legacy protocols kasi lahat ng mga vendors like si Microsoft, up to Apple, tsaka iba't ibang types of vendors, meron silang kanya-kanya or sari-sariling protocol, mahirap makipag-communicate sa isa't isa. Yun yung unang naging challenge nila. So ngayon, nagkaroon din ng, after ARPANET, nagkaroon ng early protocol called Network Control Protocol. It enabled DEC, IBM, and other hosts to communicate. So bit by bit nakapag-communicate na yung iba't ibang workstation or nodes. But it did not provide a wholly reliable communication. Kaya naman, nag-invento pa sila or nag-try pa silang mag-upgrade ng another protocol. Now, from after NCP, nagkaroon naman ng TCP/IP, which is a combination of two protocols. It is an improvement over NCP. TCP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol, and IP, which stands for Internet Protocol. So, these two protocols are now what we know as the universal protocol of the Internet. Dahil doon. Okay. And also, the 5 advantages of TCP/IP, it is used worldwide on most networks and the Internet. Advantage number 2, it influences design of wide range of network devices. Number 3, main protocol of most computer operating systems. Number 4, subject to many troubleshooting and network analysis tools. Number 5, understood by large body of network professionals. So, yun yung mga advantages ni TCP/IP. So, again, si TCP/IP ay maraming suite or protocols. It has around nearly 100 standard protocol. It is a layered set of protocols. So, isa siyang protocol na maraming protocol na included sa bawat layers niya. It is identical or has some similarities to OSI. Pero meron pa rin silang pinagkaiba kahit ganon. Now, the core components of the TCP/IP protocol, keep that in mind, is the TCP, the UDP, and the IP. Okay. So, how TCP works, we have already discussed that. Na-duplicate lang yung ating PowerPoint presentation. So, each TCP, I would like to remind you, has a specific port. Kasi nga, di ba si TCP, hinahati-hati niya yung data ng ina-access nyo na website, for example, laman ng website na yun. Kunyari, ako mag-access ng Facebook, magsasend sa akin si Facebook ng data, ang gagawin ni TCP habang nagta-travel siya sa network is, pipira-pirasuhin niya yon. So, paano niya mabubuuli yon or mababalik niya kung pinirapiraso na niyang ganon? So, kaya nga, para alam niya kung saan niya kukunin ulit pabalik, nag-assign siya ng header. And each header is may kinalalagyan na port number. So, dun lang siya dadaan. For example, for HTTP web browsing, pupunta siya sa port 80. And then, lahat ng mga packets na yon na pinirapiraso ni TCP na dumaan sa port 80 is meron ng mga naka-assign na headers na merong instruction kung alin yung mauuna dapat. Para ayos-ayos. Para pag na-receive ko na yung data galing sa Facebook, okay na yung itsura niya. As is nung expected na output ng website na yon. So, that's how TCP functions. Okay? So, next is how the Internet Protocol or IP works. Teka nga, check ko nga. I think we already have discussed this one. Okay. Hindi ko siya na-discuss kasi nga pala na ano yung una kong record. Okay. Let us go back to how the Internet Protocol or the IP works. Now, IP has basic functions. Number 1 is for data transfer. Number 2 is for packet addressing. Number 3 is for packet routing. And number 4 is for fragmentation. And number 5 would be for detection of errors. Addressing is essential for data transfer and routing. So, we have two types of IP address. We have IP version 4, which is a 32-bit network node address, and we have IP version 6, which is 128-bit node address and is used. Okay? IP address or Internet Protocol is considered as a type of connectionless protocol. It provides network-to-network addressing and routing information. It changes packet size when size varies with network. Okay, so this is the function of the IP. So this is what the TCP/IP packet encapsulation looks like. Ayan, so si IP address class, it can be likened to your residential address. Na hindi natin siya madalas na-encounter kasi nga yung ating mga IP addresses na kukonceal ng domain name. Ang domain name class is yung website name. For example, I typed in facebook.com. So, si facebook.com, meron na siyang kalakip na IP address. So, kinukonceal lang siya ng domain name kasi mas madaling i-locate natin users yung isang website kapag pag ang pangalan niya is true words, hindi series of numbers. Okay. So, using IP version 4 and IP version 6 addressing. So, IP addresses are used to identify a specific node in coordination with a MAC address, the network on which the node resides. A unique IP address enables accurate packet delivery. Two nodes with the same IP address will create an error. Kaya nga kanina sabi ko, bawal ang magkamukha na IP address. And understanding IP addressing concept is fundamental in networking. It is the heart of networking actually, because you'll be doing subnetting. Through IP addressing, you'll be configuring a lot of things. It is very important, okay, na component ng network. So, basic IP for addressing. Now, let's go on to the focus of IP version 4 or IPv4. So, IP version 4 is a dotted decimal notation. So, yun yung kanyang format. It has 4 fields totaling to 32 bits. Bakit po? Kasi lahat, paano pag sinabing 4 fields? So, I'll just type this one. Ayan, so 4 fields. Lahat nito ay may size. Yung bawat underscore na to is may 8-bit na size. Okay? And then, the second one may 8-bit din. So, making into 32 bits. So, 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 is equivalent to 32-bit. Ganun yung total. So, paano ngayon siya gumagana? Ang 8-bit is meron siyang value na 1, 2, 8. And so on pababa. So, meron kayo niyan sa CC100 nyo or CC101 nyo na subject. So, kindly look for your notes on that. Okay? Pero i-elaborate ko siya pag nag-subnetting na tayo. So, it is 32-bit. Each 4 fields has 8 bits. Kaya, pag times natin, magiging total ng 32-bit. Fields are decimal values representing 8 binary octets. Part of the address is a network ID and the other part is a host ID. Now, the IP address has 2 parts. IP version 4 address has 2 parts. The other is the network ID and the other would be host ID. Now, the 2 parts of that is very essential in subnetting. Example ng IP address is 129.5.10.100. So, lahat sila is hanggang... So, meron bang limitations ang mga numbers na to? Meron po. Ang limitations niya is 255 bawat isang field. So, itong 129, hindi siya pwedeng mag-exceed sa 255. Hanggang dun lang siya. Yun ay maximum niya. The same goes with the other fields. Like 5, like 10, and 100. Hindi sila pwedeng mag-exceed sa 255. Yun yung limitation ni IP version 4. Ayan yung kanyang maximum. Now, the IP version 4 has 5 classes. Class A, Class B, Class C, and then Class C. The address reflects the network size and transmission type. So we have 3 types of transmission. We have unicast, which means packets or internet data are sent to each requesting client. And we have multicast. Packet is sent to a group of requesting client. And then we have broadcast. Communication is sent to all network nodes. So, the 5 IP classes and 3 types of transmission will be discussed as we progress to this topic. Next slide would be the different classes of IP addressing. So, let's head on to the, to the table para shortcut na at mas maintindihan nyo. Kasi ganun din naman nilalaman nun. Now, again, we have 5 IP classes sa IP version 4. Class A na IP version 4, it is used for large network. Its beginning octet, yung pinakaumpisa niya is 1 to 126. Pag sinabi natin beginning octet, yun yung kauna-unahan niyang octet. Ngayon, yung number of octets in the network host or ID, yung unang, magbibigay akong example. So, dito ko na lang siguro itatype. For example, magbigay tayo example ng class A. So, 1 ang start. Sige, 126 na lang para sure sagad natin. 0.0.0. Ayan, para basic. So, 126.0.0 IP address is a type of class A address. Bakit po? Kasi yung una niyang octet or yung beginning octet niya is nagsisimula sa 126. Now, the first octet is sa class A, yung una is tinatawag nating under siya ng network ID. While the 3 octets remaining, siya naman yung host ID natin, yung 3 0. Now, paano naman yung class B? Sabi natin si class B daw is used for medium-sized network. So, ang start niya is 128 hanggang 191. So, magbibigay ulit ako ng example. So, nasan si 127? So, mamaya explain natin kung saan napunta si 127 kasi parang nag-skip ng isang number. So, type natin 128.0.0. So, this is an example of Class B IP address. Ngayon, nasaan yung kanyang network ID? So, the first 2 octets na nauna is yung ating network ID. And then, yung the last 2 octets would be our host ID. Ayan. So, yun yung hatian niya. Ngayon, ang limitation niya or maximum limit ng bawat octet is hanggang 255. Always remember that. Exceeding that will result to invalid IP address. So, yun yung start niya. Next naman is punta tayo kay class C na IP address. It is used for small networks like LAN network or local area networks. Kaya kadalasan nakikita natin to or mas familiar tayo dito. Ang start niya kadalasan is 192. So, magbigay ng example, wag naman puro 00. 192.12.0.2. 8. Ayan, pwede kasi di naman tayo nag-i-exceed sa 255. So, ito ay example ng class C network. Kasi bakit po? Ang beginning octet daw niya is kailangan either 192, 193, basta hindi lalagpas ng hanggang 223. Ayan, so under pa rin siya ng class C IP address. E nasaan po yung kanyang network ID? Yung network ID niya is yung first 3 octets. So, from 192.12.0, yun yung network ID. Then, yung last octet, which is 8, siya naman yung host ID natin. So, the partition between network and host ID is very crucial class in subnetting. So, keep that in mind. So, use this table as your guide. Ay, nakalagay naman 1/3. 1 denotes network ID, 3 denotes the host ID dito sa class A. Next is the class D type of IP address. So, class D is used for multicast groups. Ang start naman niya is 224 to 239. So, yun yung kanyang start. And then, meron ba siyang maximum addressable nodes? Wala po. May number of network and hosting? Wala. The same goes with class E. Kasi si class E is used for experimentation. And its start will be 240 to 255. So, yun na yung pinaka-maximum. Wala siyang maximum addressable nodes and wala din siya number of octets na specific kung saan yung network and host. Kasi mostly they use for troubleshooting or configuration purposes. So that would be all in regards to IP version 4.